Pollyanna, Chapter 23, An Accident. At Mrs. Snow's request, Pollyanna went one day to Dr. Chilton's office to get the name of a medicine which Mrs. Snow had forgotten. As it chanced, Pollyanna had never before seen the inside of Dr. Chilton's office. "I've never been to your home before. This is your home, isn't it?" she said, looking interestedly about her. The doctor smiled a little sadly. "Yes, such as 'tis," he answered as he wrote something on the pad of paper in his hand. "But it's a pretty poor apology for a home, Pollyanna. They're just rooms, that's all. Not a home." Pollyanna nodded her head wisely. Her eyes glowed with sympathetic understanding. "I know. It takes a woman's hand and heart or a child's presence to make a home," she said. "Eh?" The doctor wheeled around abruptly. "Mr. Pendleton told me," nodded Pollyanna again, "about the woman's hand and heart, or the child's presence, you know. Why don't you get a woman's hand and heart, Dr. Chilton? Or maybe you'd take Jimmy Beam if Mr. Pendleton doesn't want him." Dr. Chilton laughed a little constrainedly. "So Mr. Pendleton says it takes a woman's hand and heart to make a home, does he?" he asked evasively. "Yes, he says his is just a house, too. Why don't you, Dr. Chilton?" "Why don't I what?" The doctor had turned back to his desk. "Get a woman's hand and heart." "Oh, and I forgot." Pollyanna's face showed suddenly a painful color. "I suppose I ought to tell you. It wasn't Aunt Polly that Mr. Pendleton loved long ago, and so we aren't going there to live. You see, I told you it was, but I made a mistake. I hope you didn't tell anyone," she finished anxiously. "No, I didn't tell anyone, Pollyanna," replied the doctor a little queerly. "Oh, that's all right then," sighed Pollyanna in relief. "You see, you're the only one I told, and I thought Mr. Pendleton looked sort of funny when I said I'd told you." "Did he?" The doctor's lips twitched. "Yes, and of course he wouldn't want many people to know it when 'twasn't true. But why don't you get a woman's hand and heart, Dr. Chilton?" There was a moment's silence, then very gravely the doctor said, "They're not always to be had for the asking, little girl." Pollyanna frowned thoughtfully. "But I should think you could get 'em," she argued. The flattering emphasis was unmistakable. "Thank you," laughed the doctor with uplifted eyebrows, then gravely again, "I'm afraid some of your older sisters would not be quite so confident. At least they haven't shown themselves to be so obliging," he observed. Pollyanna frowned again, then her eyes widened in surprise. "Well, Dr. Chilton, you don't mean you didn't try to get somebody's hand and heart once like Mr. Pendleton and couldn't, did you?" The doctor got to his feet a little abruptly. There, Pollyanna, never mind about that now. Don't let other people's troubles worry your little head. Suppose you run back now to Mrs. Snow. I've written down the name of the medicine and the directions, how she is to take it. Was there anything else?" Pollyanna shook her head. "No, sir." "Thank you, sir," she murmured soberly as she turned towards the door. From the little hallway she called back, her face suddenly alight. "Anyhow, I'm glad 'twasn't my mother's hand and heart that you wanted and couldn't get, Dr. Chilton. Goodbye." It was on the last day of October that the accident occurred. Pollyanna, hurrying home from school, crossed the road at an apparently safe distance in front of a swiftly approaching motor car. Just what happened no one could seem to tell afterwards. Neither was there anyone found who could tell why it happened or who was to blame that it did happen. Pollyanna, however, at 5 o'clock was borne limp and unconscious into the little room that was so dear to her. There, by a white-faced Aunt Polly and a weeping Nancy, she was undressed tenderly and put to bed, while from the village, hastily summoned by telephone, Dr. Warren was hurrying as fast as another motor car could bring him. "And you didn't need to more'n look at her aunt's face," Nancy was sobbing to old Tom in the garden after the doctor had arrived and was closeted in the hushed room. "You didn't need to take more'n a look at her aunt's face to see that 'twasn't no duty that was eating her. Your hands don't shake and your eyes don't look as if you were trying to hold back the angel of death himself when you're just doing your duty, Mr. Tom. They don't. They don't. Is she hurt? Bad? The old man's voice shook. There ain't no telling, sobbed Nancy. She lay back that white, and still she might easy be dead, but Miss Polly said she wasn't dead. And Miss Polly ought to know, if anyone would. She kept up such a listening and feeling for her heartbeats and her breath. Couldn't you tell anything what it done to her? That old Tom's face worked convulsively. Nancy's lips relaxed a little. I wish you would call it something, Mr. Tom, and something good and strong, drat it. To think of its running down our little girl. I always hated the evil-smelling things anyhow. I did, but where is she hurt? I don't know, moaned Nancy. There's a little cut on her blessed head, but 'twain't bad. That ain't, Miss Polly says. She says she's afraid it's infernally she's hurt. A faint flicker came into old Tom's eyes. I guess you mean internally, Nancy, he said dryly. She's hurt infernally, all right. Plague take that automobile, but I don't guess Aunt Polly'd be using that word all the same. Well, I don't know, moaned Nancy with a shake of her head as she turned away. Seems as if I just couldn't stand it till that doctor gets out of there. I wish I had a washing to do. The biggest washing I ever see, I do, she wailed, wringing her hands helplessly. Even after the doctor was gone, however, there seemed to be little that Nancy could tell Mr. Tom. There appeared to be no broken bones, and the cut was of slight consequence. But the doctor had looked very grave, had shaken his head slowly, and had said that time alone could tell. After he had gone, Miss Polly had shown a face even whiter and more drawn-looking than before. The patient had not fully recovered consciousness, but at present she seemed to be resting as comfortably as could be expected. A trained nurse had been sent for and would come that night. That was all. And Nancy turned sobbingly and went into the kitchen. It was some time during the next forenoon that Pollyanna opened conscious eyes and realized where she was. Why, Aunt Polly, what's the matter? Isn't it daytime? Why don't I get up? She cried. Why, Aunt Polly, I can't get up, she moaned, falling back on the pillow after an ineffectual attempt to lift herself. No, dear, I wouldn't try just yet, soothed her aunt quickly but very quietly. But what is the matter? Why can't I get up? Miss Polly's eyes asked an agonized question of the white-capped young woman standing in the window out of range of Pollyanna's eyes. The young woman nodded. Tell her, the lips said. Miss Polly cleared her throat and tried to swallow the lump that would scarcely let her speak. You were hurt, dear, by the automobile last night. But never mind that now. Auntie wants you to rest and go to sleep again. Hurt? Oh, yes. I ran. Pollyanna's eyes were dazed. She lifted her hand to her forehead. Why, it's done up and it hurts. Yes, dear, but never mind. Just rest. But Aunt Polly, I feel so funny and so bad. My legs feel so queer, only they don't feel at all. With an imploring look into the nurse's face, Miss Polly struggled to her feet and turned away. The nurse came forward quickly. Suppose you let me talk to you now, she began cheerily. I'm sure I think it's high time we were getting acquainted, and I'm going to introduce myself. I am Miss Hunt, and I've come to help your aunt take care of you. And the very first thing I'm going to do is to ask you to swallow these little white pills for me. Pollyanna's eyes grew a little bit wild. But I don't want to be taken care of. That is, not for long. I want to get up. You know, I go to school. Can't I go to school tomorrow? From the window where Aunt Polly stood now, there came a half-stifled cry. Tomorrow? Smiled the nurse brightly. Well, I may not let you out quite as soon as that, Miss Pollyanna, but just swallow these little pills for me and we'll see what they'll do. All right. agreed Pollyanna, somewhat doubtful. But I must go to school day after tomorrow. There are examinations then, you know. She spoke again a minute later. She spoke of school and of the automobile and of how her head ached, but very soon her voice trailed into silence under the blessed influence of the little white pills she had swallowed. Chapter 24, John Pendleton. Pollyanna did not go to school tomorrow, nor the day after tomorrow. Pollyanna, however, did not realize this except momentarily when a brief period of full consciousness sent insistent questions to her lips. Pollyanna did not realize anything, in fact, very clearly until a week had passed. Then the fever subsided, the pain lessened somewhat, and her mind awoke to full consciousness. She had then to be told all over again what had occurred. "And so it's hurt that I am and not sick," she sighed at last. "Well, I'm glad of that." Glad, Pollyanna?" asked her aunt, who was sitting by the bed. "Yes, I'd so much rather have broken legs like Mr. Pendleton's than lifelong invalids like Mrs. Snow. You know, broken legs get welled and lifelong invalids don't." Miss Polly, who had said nothing whatever about broke legs, got suddenly to her feet and walked to the little dressing table across the room. She was picking up one object after another now and putting each down in an aimless fashion quite unlike her usual decisiveness. Her face was not aimless looking at all, however. It was white and drawn. On the bed, Pollyanna lay blinking at the dancing band of colors in the ceiling, which came from one of the prisms in the window. "I'm glad it isn't smallpox that ails me, too," she murmured contentedly. "That would be worse than freckles. And I'm glad 'tisn't whooping cough. I've had that, and it's horrid. And I'm glad 'tisn't appendicitis nor measles, 'cause they're catching. Measles are, I mean. And they wouldn't let you stay here." "You seem to be glad for a good many things, my dear," faltered Aunt Polly, putting her hand to her throat as if her collar bound. Pollyanna laughed softly. "I am. I've been thinking of 'em, lots of 'em. All the time I've been looking up at that rainbow. I love rainbows. I'm so glad Mr. Pendleton gave me those prisms. I'm glad of some things I haven't said yet. I don't know, but I'm most glad I was hurt." "Pollyanna!" Pollyanna laughed softly again. She turned luminous eyes on her aunt. "Well, you see, since I've been hurt, you've called me dear lots of times, and you didn't before. I love to be called dear by folks that belong to you. I mean, some of the ladies' aiders did call me that, and of course that was pretty nice, but not so nice as if they had belonged to me like you do. Oh, Aunt Polly, I'm so glad you belong to me." Aunt Polly did not answer. Her hand was at her throat again. Her eyes were full of tears. She had turned away and was hurrying from the room through the door by which the nurse had just entered. It was that afternoon that Nancy ran out to old Tom, who was cleaning harnesses in the barn. Her eyes were wild. Mr. Tom, guess what happened?" she panted. "You wouldn't guess in 1,000 years. You couldn't. "Then I calculate I won't try," retorted the man grimly, "especially as I hain't got more'n 10 to live anyhow, probably. You better tell me first off, Nancy." "Well, listen then. Who do you suppose is in the parlor now with the mistress? Who, I say?" Old Tom shook his head. "There's no telling," he declared. "Yes, there is, I'm telling. It's John Pendleton." "Sho, now, you joking, girl." "Not much I am, and me a-letting him in myself, crutches and all. And the team, he come in a-waiting this minute at the door for him, just as if he wasn't the cranky old crosspatch he is, what never talks to no one. Just think, Mr. Tom, him a-calling on her." "Well, why not?" demanded the old man a little aggressively. Nancy gave him a scornful glance. "As if you didn't know better'n me," she derided. "Eh?" "Oh, you needn't be so innocent," she retorted with mock indignation. "You what led me wild goose chasing in the first place." "What do you mean?" Nancy glanced through the open barn door towards the house and came a step nearer to the old man. "Listen, 'twas you that was telling me Miss Polly had a lover in the first place, wasn't it? Well, one day I think I finds 2 and 2, and I puts them together and makes 4, but it turns out to be 5 and no 4 at all. At all." With a gesture of indifference, old Tom turned and fell to work. "If you're going to talk to me, you got to talk plain horse sense," he declared testily. "I never was no hand for figures." Nancy laughed. "Well, it's this. I heard something that made me think him and Miss Polly were lovers." "Mr. Pendleton?" Old Tom straightened up. "Yes. Oh, I know now it wasn't. It was that blessed child's mother he was in love with, and that's why he wanted— Well, never mind that part," she added hastily, remembering just in time her promise to Pollyanna not to tell that Mr. Pendleton had wished her to come and live with him. "Since I've been asking folks about him some since, and I've found out that him and Miss Polly hain't been friends for years, and that she's been hating him like pison, owing to the silly gossip that coupled their names together when she was 18 or 20. "Yes, I remember," nodded old Tom. "It was 3 or 4 years after Miss Jenny give him the mitten and went off with the other chap. Miss Polly knew about it, of course, and was sorry for him, so she tried to be nice to him. Maybe she overdid it a little. She hated that minister chap, so who had took off her sister. At any rate, somebody began to make trouble. They said she was running after him." "Running after any man? Her?" interjected Nancy. "I know it, but they did," declared old Tom, "and of course no gal of any spunk will stand that. Then about that time come her own lover and the trouble with him. After that, she shut up an oyster and wouldn't have nothing to do with nobody for a spell. Her heart just seemed to turn bitter at the core." "Yes, I know. I heard about that now," rejoined Nancy, "and that's why you could knock me down with a feather when I see him at the door. Him, what she ain't spoke to for years. But I let him in and went and told her." "What did she say?" Old Tom held his breath. "Nothing. At first, she was so still I thought she hadn't heard, and I was just going to say it over when she speaks up quite like, 'Tell Mr. Pendleton I will be down at once.' And I come and told him. Then I come out here and told you," finished Nancy, casting another backward glance towards the house. "Huh," grunted old Tom and fell to work again. In the ceremonious parlor of the Harrington homestead, Mr. John Pendleton did not have to wait long before a swift step warned him of Miss Polly's coming. As he attempted to rise, she made a gesture of remonstrance. She did not offer her hand, however, and her face was coldly reserved. "I called to ask for Pollyanna," he began at once a little brusquely. "Thank you, she's about the same," said Miss Polly. "And that is, won't you tell me how she is?" His voice was not quite steady this time. A quick spasm of pain crossed the woman's face. "I can't. I wish I could." "You mean you don't know?" "Yes." "But the doctor?" "Dr. Warren seems at sea. He is in correspondence now with a New York specialist. They've arranged for a consultation at once." But what were her injuries that you do know?" "A slight cut on the head, 1 or 2 bruises, and an injury to the spine which had seemed to cause paralysis from the hips down." A low cry came from the man. There was a brief silence. Then huskily he asked, "And Pollyanna? How does she take it?" "She doesn't understand at all how things really are, and I can't tell her." "But she must know something." Miss Polly lifted her hand to the collar at her throat in the gesture that had become so common to her of late. "Oh, yes, she knows she can't move, but she thinks her legs are broken. She says she's glad it's her broken legs like yours rather than lifelong invalids like Mrs. Snow's, because broken legs get well and the other doesn't. She talks like that all the time until it It seems if I should die. Through the blur of tears in his own eyes, the man saw the drawn face opposite, twisted with emotion. Involuntarily, his thoughts went back to what Pollyanna had said when he had made his final plea for her presence. Oh, I couldn't leave Aunt Polly now. It was this thought that made him ask her very gently as soon as he could control his voice. I wonder if you know, Miss Harrington, how hard I tried to get Pollyanna to come and live with me. With you? Pollyanna? The man winced a little at the tone of her voice, but his own voice was still impersonably cool when he spoke again. Yes, I wanted to adopt her legally. You understand, making her my heir, of course. The woman in the opposite chair relaxed a little. It came to her suddenly what a brilliant future it would have meant to Pollyanna, this adoption, and she wondered if Pollyanna were old enough to be tempted by this man's money and position. I'm very fond of Pollyanna, the man was continuing, and I'm fond of her both for her own sake and for her mother's. I stood ready to give Pollyanna the love that had been 25 years in storage. Love, Miss Polly remembered suddenly why she had taken this child in the first place, and with the recollection came the remembrance of Pollyanna's own words uttered that very morning. I love to be called dear by folks that belong to you. And it was this little love-hungry girl that had been offered the stored-up affection of 25 years, and she was old enough to be tempted by love. With a sinking heart, Miss Polly realized that. With a sinking heart, too, she realized something else. The dreariness of her own future now without Pollyanna. Well, she said, and the man, recognizing the self-control that vibrated through the harshness of the tone, smiled sadly. She would not come, he answered. Why? She wouldn't leave you. She said you'd been so good to her. She wanted to stay with you, and she said she thought you wanted her to stay, he finished as he pulled himself up to his feet. He did not look towards Aunt Polly. He turned his face resolutely towards the door, but instantly he heard a swift step at his side and found a shaking hand thrust towards him. When the specialist comes and I know anything definite about Pollyanna, I will let you hear from me, said a trembling voice. Goodbye, and thank you for coming. Pollyanna will be pleased. Chapter 25, A Waiting Game. On the day after John Pendleton's call at the Harrington homestead, Miss Polly set herself to the task of preparing Pollyanna for the visit of the specialist. Pollyanna, my dear, she began gently, we've decided that we want another doctor besides Dr. Warren to see you, and another one might tell us something new to help you get well faster, you know. A joyous light came to Pollyanna's face. Dr. Chilton, oh, Aunt Polly, I'd so love to have Dr. Chilton. I wanted him all the time, but I was afraid you didn't on account of his seeing you in the sun parlor that day, you know. So I didn't like to say anything, but I'm so glad you do want him. Aunt Polly's face had turned white, then red, then back to white again. But when she answered, she showed very plainly that she was trying to speak lightly and cheerfully. Oh, no, dear, it wasn't Dr. Chilton at all that I meant. It's a new doctor, a very famous doctor from New York who knows a great deal about hurts like yours. Pollyanna's face fell. I don't believe he knows half so much as Dr. Chilton. Oh, yes, he does, I'm sure, my dear. But it was Dr. Chilton who doctored Mr. Pendleton's broken leg. Aunt Polly, if you don't mind very much, I would like to have Dr. Chilton. Truly, I would. A distressed color suffused Miss Polly's face. For a moment she did not speak at all. Then she said gently, though yet without a touch of her own stern decisiveness, well, I do mind, Pollyanna. I mind very much. I would do anything, almost anything for you, my dear, but For reasons which I do not care to speak of now, I don't wish Dr. Chilton called in on this case, and believe me, he cannot know so much about your trouble as this doctor does, who will come from New York tomorrow." Pollyanna still looked unconvinced. "But Aunt Polly, if you loved Dr. Chilton—" "What, Pollyanna?" Aunt Polly's voice was very sharp now. Her cheeks were very red, too. "I say, if you loved Dr. Chilton and didn't love the other one," sighed Pollyanna, "seems to me that would make some difference in the good he would do, and I love Dr. Chilton." The nurse entered the room at that moment, and Aunt Polly rose to her feet abruptly, a look of relief on her face. "I'm very sorry, Pollyanna," she said a little stiffly, "but I'm afraid you'll have to let me be the judge this time. Besides, it's already arranged. The New York doctor's coming tomorrow." As it happened, however, the New York doctor did not come tomorrow. At the last moment, a telegram told of an unavoidable delay owing to the sudden illness of the specialist himself. This led Pollyanna into a renewed pleading for the substitution of Dr. Chilton, which would be so easy now, you know. But as before, Aunt Polly shook her head and said, "No, dear," very decisively, yet with a still more anxious assurance that she would do anything but that to please her dear Pollyanna. As the days of waiting passed, one by one, it did indeed seem that Aunt Polly was doing everything but that she could do to please her niece. "I wouldn't have believed it. You could have made me believe it," Nancy said to old Tom one morning. "There doesn't seem to be a minute in the day that Miss Polly ain't just hanging around, waiting to do something for that blessed lamb. If 'twa'n't more than to let in the cat, and her what wouldn't let Fluff nor Buff upstairs for love nor money a week ago, and now she lets 'em tumble all over the bed just 'cause it pleases Miss Pollyanna. And when she ain't doing nothing else, she's moving them little glass danglers round to different windows in the room, so the sun'll make the rainbows dance, as that blessed child calls it. She sent Timothy down to Cobb's greenhouse 3 times for fresh flowers, and that besides all the posies fetched into her too. And the other day, if I didn't find her sitting for the bed with the nurse actually doing her hair, and Miss Pollyanna looking on and bossing from the bed, her eyes all shining and happy, and I declare to goodness if Miss Pollyanna hain't wore her hair like that every day now, just to please that blessed child." Old Tom chuckled. "Well, it strikes me Miss Polly herself ain't looking none the worse for wearing them curls round her forehead," he observed dryly. "Course she ain't," retorted Nancy indignantly. "She looks like folks now. She's actually almost—" "Careful now, Nancy," interrupted the old man with a slow grin. "You know what you said when I told you she was handsome once." Nancy shrugged her shoulders. "Oh, she ain't handsome, of course, but I will own up, she don't look like the same woman what with the ribbons and lace jiggers Miss Pollyanna makes her wear around her neck." "I told you so," nodded the man. "I told you she wasn't old." Nancy laughed. "Well, I'll own up she ain't got quite so good an imitation of it as she did have, before Miss Pollyanna come. Say, Mr. Tom, who was her lover? I hain't found that out yet. I hain't. "Hain't you?" asked the old man. "Excuse me." "Well, I guess you won't then, for me." "Oh, Mr. Tom, come on now," wheedled the girl. "You see, there ain't many folks here that I can ask." "Maybe not, but there's one anyhow that ain't answering," grinned old Tom. Then abruptly the light died from his eyes. "How is she today, the little gal?" Nancy shook her head. Her face, too, had sobered. "Just the same, Mr. Tom. There ain't no special differences I can see, or anybody, I guess. She just lays there and sleeps and talks some and tries to smile and be glad 'cause the sun sets or the moon rises or some other such thing, till it's enough to make you heartbreak with a aching." "I know it's the game, bless her sweetheart," nodded old Tom, blinking a little. "She told you, then, about the game?" "Oh, yes, she told me long ago," the old man hesitated, then went on, his lips twitching a little. I was growling one day 'cause I was so bent up and crooked, and what do you suppose the little thing said? I couldn't guess. I wouldn't think she could find anything about that to be glad about. Well, she did. She said I would be glad anyhow, that I didn't have to stoop so far to do my weeding 'cause I was already bent part way over. Nancy gave a wistful laugh. Well, I ain't surprised after all. You might know she'd find something. We've been playing it that game since almost the first, 'cause there wasn't no one else she could play it with, though she did speak of her aunt. Miss Polly? Nancy chuckled. I guess you ain't got such an awful different opinion of the mistress than I have. She bridled. Old Tom stiffened. I was only thinking 'twould be some sort of a surprise to her, he explained with dignity. Well, yes, I guess 'twould be then, retorted Nancy. I ain't saying what 'twould be now. I believe anything of the mistress now, even that she'd take to playing it herself. But hain't the little girl told her ever? She's told everyone else, I guess. I'm hearing of it everywhere now since she was hurted, said Tom. Well, she didn't tell Miss Polly, rejoined Nancy. Miss Pollyanna told me long ago that she couldn't tell her 'cause her aunt didn't like to have her talk about her father, and 'twas her father's game, and she'd have to talk about him if she did tell her, so she never told her. Oh, I see, the old man nodded his head slowly. There was always bitter against the minister chap, all of 'em, 'cause he took Miss Jenny away from 'em, and Miss Polly, young as she was, could never forgive him. She was that fond of Miss Jenny in them days. I see. 'Twas a bad mess, he sighed as he turned away. Yes, 'twas, all around, sighed Nancy in her turn as she went back to her kitchen. For no one were those days of waiting easy. The nurse tried to look cheerful, but her eyes were troubled. The doctor was openly nervous and impatient. Miss Polly said little, but even the softening waves of her hair around her face and the becoming laces at her throat could not hide the fact she was growing thin and pale. As to Pollyanna petted the dog, smoothed the cat's slick head, admired the flowers, and ate the fruits and jellies that were sent in to her, and returned innumerable cheery answers to the many messages of love and inquiry that were brought to her bedside. But she too grew pale and thin, and the nervous activity of the poor little hands and arms only emphasized the pitiful motionlessness of the once active little feet and legs, now lying so woefully quiet under the blankets. As to the game, Pollyanna told Nancy these days how glad she was going to be when she could go to school again, go to see Mrs. Snow, go to call on Mr. Pendleton, and go to ride with Dr. Chilton, nor did she seem to realize that at all this gladness was in the future, not the present. Nancy, however, did realize it and cry about it when she was alone. Chapter 26, A Door Ajar. Just a week from the time Dr. Meade, the specialist, was first expected, he came. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man with kind gray eyes and a cheerful smile. Pollyanna liked him at once and told him so. You look quite a lot like my doctor, you see, she added engagingly. Your doctor? Dr. Meade glanced in evident surprise at Dr. Warren talking with the nurse a few feet away. Dr. Warren was a small, brown-eyed man with a pointed brown beard. Oh, that isn't my doctor, smiled Pollyanna, divining his thought. Dr. Warren is Aunt Polly's doctor. My doctor is Dr. Chilton. Oh, said Dr. Meade a little oddly, his eyes resting on Miss Polly, who with a vivid flush had turned hastily away. Yes, Pollyanna hesitated, then continued with her usual truthfulness. You see, I wanted Dr. Chilton all the time, but Aunt Polly wanted you. She said you knew more than Dr. Chilton anyway about broken legs like mine, and of course if you do, I can be glad for that. Do you? A swift something crossed the doctor's face that Pollyanna could not quite translate. Only time can tell that little girl, he said gently. Then he turned a grave face towards Dr. Warren, who had just come to the bedside. Everyone said afterwards that it was the cat that did it. Certainly, if Fluffy had not poked an insistent paw and nose against Pollyanna's unlatched door, the door would not have swung noiselessly open on its hinges until it stood perhaps a foot ajar. And if the door had not been open, Pollyanna would not have heard her aunt's words. In the hall, the two doctors, the nurse, and Miss Polly stood talking. In Pollyanna's room, Fluffy had just jumped to the bed with a little purring meow of joy when through the open door sounded clear and sharply Aunt Polly's agonized exclamation. "Not that! Doctor, not that! You don't mean the child will never walk again?" It was all confusion then. First, from the bedroom, came Pollyanna's terrified, "Aunt Polly, Aunt Polly." Then Miss Polly, seeing the door open and realizing her words had been heard, gave a low little moan, and for the first time in her life, fainted dead away. The nurse, with a choking "she heard," stumbled toward the open door. The two doctors stayed with Miss Polly, and Dr. Meade had to stay. He had caught Miss Polly as she fell. Dr. Warren stood by helplessly. It was not until Pollyanna cried out again sharply and the nurse closed the door that the two men, with a despairing glance into each other's eyes, awoke to the immediate duty of bringing the woman in Dr. Meade's arms back to unhappy consciousness. In Pollyanna's room, the nurse had found a purring gray cat on the bed, vainly trying to attract the attention of a white-faced, wild-eyed little girl. "Miss Hunt, please, I want Aunt Polly. I want her right away. Quick, please." The nurse closed the door and came forward hurriedly. Her face was very pale. She can't come just this minute, dear. She will, a little later. What is it? Can't I get it?" Pollyanna shook her head. "But I want to know what she said just now. Did you hear her? I want Aunt Polly. She said something. I want her to tell me 'twasn't true. 'Twisn't true." The nurse tried to speak, but no words came. Something in her face sent an added terror to Pollyanna's eyes. "Miss Hunt, you did hear her. It is true. Oh, it isn't true. You don't mean I can't ever walk again?" There, dear, don't," choked the nurse. "Perhaps he didn't know. Perhaps he was mistaken. There's a lot of things that could happen, you know." "But Aunt Polly said he did know. She said he knew more than anybody else about broken legs like mine." Yes, I know, dear, but all the doctors make mistakes sometimes. Just don't think any more about it now. Please don't, dear." Pollyanna flung out her arms wildly. "But I can't help thinking about it," she sobbed. "It's all there is to think about. Well, Miss Hunt, how am I going to go to school or to see Mr. Pendleton or Mrs. Snow or anybody?" She caught her breath and sobbed wildly for a moment. Suddenly she stopped and looked up, a new terror in her eyes. "Well, Miss Hunt, if I can't walk, how am I ever going to be glad for anything?" Miss Hunt did not know the game, but she did know that her patient must be quieted, and that at once. In spite of her own perturbation and heartache, her hands had not been idle, and she stood now at the bedside with the quieting powder ready. There, dear, just take this," she soothed. "By and by we'll be more rested, and we'll see what can be done then. Things aren't half as bad as they seem, dear, lots of times, you know." Obediently, Pollyanna took the medicine and sipped the water from the glass in Miss Hunt's hand. "I know that sounds like things Father used to say," faltered Pollyanna, blinking off the tears. "He said there was always something about everything that might be worse. But I reckon he had never just heard he could never walk again. I don't see how there can be anything about that could be worse, do you?" Miss Hunt did not reply. She could not trust herself to speak just then. End of chapter 26.